it's not too hard to set up our own namespaces. So for example, you can use namespace standard, you can use the global namespace, and you can also use, so for example, here's a global namespace would be an example of that would be something like this. Say int z is a global variable, it's in the global namespace. At the same time, you also have a namespace called a with the variable x. Okay, so you can also use the standard namespaces. I'm sorry, you can use the standard namespace, std. And you can use all of these at the same time, right? There's no conflict in this case. Cout is understood to come from std. Z, if you were to use that, would be fine. There's no ambiguity. You could also use the variable x inside a namespace a. Now, a namespace can have anything, can have ints just sitting there. You can have classes, you can have structs, you can have enumerated types. All of those things are possible in namespaces. All right, so I'm going to save this, compile it. Hopefully it'll just print out hello, and then y is equal to z, which is 6, and so it should print out 6. Okay, there it is. Now, what would we do if we want to access this x variable, which is inside this namespace a? Can you do this? It turns out you can't. Not just yet, anyway. Because there is a namespace, but we're not using that namespace. Okay, so how would we do that? If we just wanted that one thing from the namespace A, we would use the scope resolution operator to remove any ambiguity. There's no ambiguity. This X comes from this namespace A. Now you compile it and run it, and it should print out 3. Good. So there is a way to use these names, the way to import these names into our program would be to say using. So it's right there, and it's not that hard to use. But let's say for whatever reason we wanted to import all the names in A, and let's say right now we just have 1. But let's say we have a ton and we want to use all of them. This time around, you could omit, once you have this using namespace A, you don't have to say A:::. Okay, it's just like sort of very similar to the import in Java. So it works fine with or without. So you could, if you really wanted to, you can have this using namespace A and also specify that it's coming from the A namespace, and it'll work. No problems. So a couple of things is showing you can have a namespace while you're using the standard namespace. You can define your own, you can define multiple ones. Namespace B, and you can use the same name. Int x is equal to, let's say, 4. Okay, so just to show that we can actually use this, let's just go ahead and use b::x. There's no ambiguity now. Compile it and run it, and it should say 4. Good. So you can do that. There would be an ambiguity if you try to use both namespaces and try to use a variable or name from both of those namespaces. So using these it would be a problem if you try to do this. Why? Because A has a namespace called X, we're importing that with this statement. B also has one, and we are using that as well. So now we'll have problems. Wait, I didn't save it. Save it, compile it. All right, we got errors. It's basically saying there's an X in here, there's an X in here. I don't know which one is which. Now, how would you resolve this? Now, note that the error doesn't come from using the namespace. The error comes from using a particular name in that namespace. So you can do this and resolve any ambiguity. compile this. This works, and it prints out the right value. This x, the x that we use here, comes from this line, and so it has the value 3. You can still use the name x from B. All you have to do is compile that, run it, and you get the 4. Okay. So what if a name is defined in both? You might get an error if you try to use it. You can still use both namespaces, but you must specify which namespace is used. So there's a bunch of examples of namespaces. Let's say you have one block in which you use namespace ns1. Now this has the same scope as other variables, as ns1 is active from here to here. Okay, and this ns2 is available from here to the end of the block. So this using directive has block scope, just like regular names, like if you have an int function, and so on. So if you have two namespaces, both having the same void function, there's no difference in the signature, that is, it's not overloaded. In that case, you could separate out the scopes. So for example, in our simple program, we could set up a new block here, right, and say that it's ambiguous. So you could take that out and say, okay, I'm going to use the namespace A, so that this X over here refers to namespace A. And then later on, I'm going to use namespace B. Of course, I have to remove that, so I remove any ambiguity. Let me save this and format this better. Okay, it's a little better to read. So now you're going to use the namespace A from here till the end of this block, using namespace B from here till the end of this block. There's no ambiguity, so you can compile this and no problems. If you took this using namespace out and put it over here, yeah, there would be ambiguity. Okay. So whenever you set up a namespace, you can have some code like variables, classes, all of those things. It's often advantageous to do this. That said, in this course, we're probably not going to do a whole lot of this. We're probably going to use one namespace per program that we define. Everything else will be like standard and things like that. Okay. So when you set up a namespace of your own, it places all names defined in this code into this namespace, and you can have the same namespaces spread out. So let me just quickly show that is possible. So we have a namespace A, we have namespace B, and later on we could just say, oh, I forgot something in my namespace A, I'm going to put it here. Namespace A, int y, let's say call it z is equal to 23. Okay, and then I can say y is equal to z. Print that out. And I have errors. Let's see what I did wrong. Oh, I used the same name. Alright, let me take this out since I don't need this z anymore. And you can see, if you use simple names, you'll run into problems very quickly. Alright, so now, what I want to show is that you have this namespace here, A, You have a different namespace, and then you sort of define namespace A again. You still have access to X from here and Z from here. So Z will work, so will X. It's not like this thing overrides what you said before. They add. So now your namespace A has two things, X and Z. Hope that's clear. So try out these simple examples. They'll make it clear. In this case, X is 3. I should put a C, I should put an end line, shouldn't I, to make it clearer. Right. Now it'll appear on 2 different lines, make things a little bit more readable. Okay, so first time around, there's no ambiguity. This X definitely has the value 3. This one has the value 4. I can switch this to I can use the Z name in this namespace A. No ambiguities. Okay, so when you declare a function, you can put it in a namespace space 1. You can have it somewhere, not give it a function body. Later on, you can say, okay, now I know what's going to go in that function. You use the same namespace, that's fine, and then declare and then give that function a function body later on. That's perfectly fine. These things are just the C++ compiler keeps track of all of the different parts of this one namespace. Not a problem. Okay, so you can also specify individual names from within a namespace. So for example, you can use, in this case, you can use this function fun1 from one namespace and then fun2 from a different namespace. That is, if you have 2 namespaces and each of them, that is both of them, have 2 functions, fun1 and fun2, you can say which one that you're using from. So for example, you can say using namespace A, and you can, one way to do it actually would be to say, just say B:X. There's no ambiguity there. Okay, and you can also say using namespace X. Compile this. Okay. Alright, I guess I can't compile, I can't use a simple int, but you should be able to use something like this, void A, or something else, B. Alright, and I can choose a particular name like B out of this namespace A. I hope this works. And what did I do wrong? Using namespace. Oh, sorry. I found my mistake. When you're using a particular name from a namespace, you're actually using a name, so you don't want to use namespace. You just want to say using A:B. Alright, now let me go back and see if I can use just the namespace X. Compile this. Yes. So what I'm doing is importing a specific name from this namespace A. And now if I do this, I think I should be good. There we go. And it should print out, if I print this, I should print out a 3. Yep, there's my 3. And here I use 4 from namespace B. Alright. So you can import just individual names from namespace or all of the names. So when you say using namespace, you get all the names. When you specify which name inside a namespace, you just say using and the name itself.